Welcome back to Live Now from Fox on this Sunday. I'm Stephanie Quinu, and this is a live look at the White House at this hour as President-elect Trump has rounded out his picks for the top 15 positions within his cabinet in just 3 weeks. So this is a pace that's very different from his first run at the presidency in 2016. And I did want to share this with you, as I did want to show you all of those picks and his administration now taking shape. Trump announcing yesterday that he will nominate a former White House aide, Brooke Rollins, to be his agriculture secretary. This nomination, along with all other cabinet selections, must be confirmed by the Senate, which will be controlled by Republicans when Trump takes office on January 20th. Now, the Ag Agency controls policies, regulations, and aid programs related to farming, forestry, ranching, food quality, and nutrition. The pick completes Trump's selection of the heads of executive branch departments just 2.5 weeks after the former president won the White House once again. Several other picks that are traditionally cabinet level remain, including U.S. Trade Representative and head of the Small Business Administration. But this also comes as Trump announced former Florida Attorney General Pam Bondi as his choice for Attorney General after former Florida Representative Matt Gaetz announced that he was withdrawing from consideration after controversy surrounding some sexual misconduct allegations. To speak more on this, I do want to bring Richard Gordon, who is a political analyst. And Richard, as always, we appreciate you taking the time to join us here on Live Now from Fox.
Good morning, Stephanie. Thank you for having me on. It's good to see you.
So President-elect Trump has made it very known that this second term is going to be drastically different from his first term as president. We've noticed that perhaps in the selection of his cabinet secretaries, but also at the speed at which he has announced these nominations. You know, what do you make of the difference so far between term one and already what is happening right now?
Sure, it is. It's drastically different. It's day and night. Apples and oranges. Pick whichever phrase you want to use. Look, I mean, the first time you have a complete and total outsider who gets elected president of the United States, who has not been in the political world to any real extent, who knows absolutely nobody, and suddenly has to pick a cabinet, and he picked strangers. He picked people he had no idea who they were. He met them once or twice. And it turned out for him that they weren't particularly loyal to him. They were qualified and they were able people, but they had their own points of view, weren't particularly loyal. This time around, first of all, he has Susie Wiles, who knows absolutely everybody there is to know in the political world, advising him. He didn't have someone like that last time. And he also knows a lot of these people. He's been around for 8 years now, and he knows these people and has met them many times. I've been at Mar-a-Lago, they've advised him, et cetera. So he knows the type of people he wants to pick. So that's one part of it. But there's a second part of it, a big part of it. They're not vetting these people. He's picking people he wants, but he's not really looking into their backgrounds. And that could come back to haunt him. You know, he's picking people who we've seen. I mean, Matt Gaetz is the most obvious one. He obviously knew the issues with Matt Gaetz, but a lot of these other folks have other issues that are going to come to light because the Senate is going to bring it forward. I mean, that is their job and they will do it. So there's a tremendous speed here, but on some levels, it's a little risky and maybe a little reckless the way he's doing it. Picking people he knows, picking people he likes, but not really looking back into their backgrounds to understand their histories and why they might not be appropriate for a cabinet level position.
And so you were saying, obviously, the fact that these must be confirmed by the Senate and any concerns are going to come out publicly. You know, when we take a look at the impact that these people, you know, if they are to be sworn in, what do you make of that landscape when it comes to those selections?
Well, look, the vast majority of them are going to get sworn in. Most presidents tend to lose one. Trump has already lost one. You know, my personal feeling is there's no way in heck Matt Gaetz thought he was going to get to be Attorney General. I mean, with his background and the issues, the ethics report, you know, the smart thing for him to do was to do what he did, get out of Congress, look good doing it, possibly get ready to run for governor of Florida in 2 years, which is what I expect he will do. Most of them will just sail through. There won't be an issue. I mean, Treasury, agriculture, they're gonna just sail through. Some of the others, defense especially, has had numerous issues come up. But what you're also seeing in the Senate is people are raising questions about their qualifications. Just because you served in Afghanistan, which obviously we should commend and be proud of, doesn't make you ready to be Secretary of Defense. And there's a lot of issues going on with that nomination. There's a lot of issues going on with the Tulsi Gabbard nomination. When you do a cabinet, whether you're a governor or a president, you kind of have a choice whether you pick people because you just think they're smart and good, or you pick people for position because they're experts in the field. Most presidents tend to pick people that really have some expertise. Donald Trump is not doing that. Donald Trump is picking people whose one criteria is they are completely drop dead loyal to him, and he's hoping that they could do the job. Look, he just picked someone to be ambassador to NATO who has no foreign policy experience. So what he's doing is surrounding himself with total, complete loyalists who might not have experience. Now, you get lucky with a Pam Bondi who is both drop dead loyal, but obviously incredibly qualified to be Attorney General of the United States. Some are going to have problems. Some of them are going to have problems on substance. But I expect the vast majority of them are going to sail through.
And of course, the Senate is now being controlled by Republicans. This past week, you were actually at an event, a Republican event in Florida. First of all, if you could share with us a little bit about that, but also the conversation, the chatter amongst Republicans when it comes to President-elect Trump's selections.
Well, it was interesting. I was at the Republican Governors Association meeting. They meet many times during the year. This was their annual meeting in Florida. The Democrats have their meeting in 2 weeks. I'll be there as well. It was interesting. First of all, the word Trump did not come up very often. It was interesting. People talked about the next administration, the incoming government. People never use, not never, but rarely use the word Trump. There was tremendous eye rolls over the cabinet selections. Some of the governors privately, even publicly, were kind of shocked by a number of the cabinet selections. So there was a lot of that going on, especially concerning Bobby Kennedy, which we could talk about because there's extreme concern. Everyone is looking at vaccinations. But for governors who end up picking up a third of the Medicaid costs, and the feds pick up 2/3, there's a huge concern if they change that formula at all. And there's a lot of concern about Bobby Kennedy on that. There's also, I noticed, a really dramatic change in how they're talking about immigration. Governor DeSantis spoke at one session, and he was talking about teaching, not indoctrination. And that is becoming a buzzword I'm finding amongst Republicans at this point. Governor DeSantis was talking about Marxists in schools, socialists taking over universities, et cetera, and how we have to get rid of them. And I find that whole concept of teaching students going back to a more classical education and getting rid of quote unquote Marxists has become a buzzword amongst the Republican Party. So those are some of the themes that are coming through. I think the governors to a group are happy about what happened. Thrilled is probably a better word, but are concerned about the cabinet choices, concerned what it means to them and how they run their states. The last point I'll make on this is the listeners have to understand that Joe Biden flooded the country with money, right? He put $1.9 trillion out there to try to save the country after COVID. That money's going away. And there isn't going to be that money. A lot of governors have built their budgets, a lot of mayors especially have built their budgets with that money built in. Well, that money is not going to be there. And if you build a budget on that, you're going to have to find the money for it. There's a lot of concern about that. A number of people said to me, we have so much money, we couldn't even possibly spend it. They're going to give that money back to the feds at some point. There's real concern about how states balance their budgets going forward. An issue that doesn't get a lot of airtime, people aren't talking about, but that is what, governors and whatnot are speaking. If I could raise one other issue, not from the governors, but what I'm hearing from a lot of business leaders who are at this meeting is complete shock and fear about tariffs. There's a lot of companies who don't know how they're going to make it. If you're an electronics company and you're importing tons of things from Asia, they don't know how they're going to make it. Car companies, et cetera. There is real worry about tariffs and what the president-elect will do once he becomes president.
And again, these are just issues that we're going to have to wait and see. As we take a look at the week ahead, there are so many developments on a weekly, daily basis. Richard, is there anything that you're keeping a very close eye on?
Yeah, well, a couple things. One is what's going on in Ukraine. I think that's a big issue. We all understand there was going to be a significant change in administration policy towards Ukraine, which could bring Ukraine to its knees. I mean, if the United States stops funding their fight against Russia, the war's over because they'll have no money to fight and they'll have to give in on their land. The Biden administration is doing everything they can to send money, missiles, whatever they can, and that fight is being moved dramatically onto Russian soil. So that's one thing that I'm watching very closely. Second thing is the money issue. You know, how are states and cities going to use the money they have before they have to give it back? A lot of issues that people aren't talking about, but these are things that affect people day to day. They just don't realize that it does. So those are two things that I'm paying careful attention to because they're going to be big issues come January 20th.
It's going to have a lot of ripple effects, that's for sure. Richard, as always, we appreciate you taking the time to join us here on Live Now from Fox.
My pleasure. Always nice. Thank you.